Colors 2, man. I mean, I love that we say our band name in a track.
So I have the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Tommy Rogers with me today. How are you, my good friend?
I'm very well. How are you?
Yeah, good. Apart from freezing my ass off in London, I'm all right, man. Are you getting into the festive spirit over there in LA?
Sort of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're taking it slow. We got the tree up. My son's 9, so he loves Christmas, and he's at that weird age though where he doesn't like anything at all. So we have no idea what to get him. He just, he likes online stuff. So I'll buy him a bunch of NFTs or something.
This is the beginning of Btbam NFTs. So let's just kind of just kind of dive straight into colors, really.
Yeah.
So I know, like in the past, you've mentioned that you wouldn't have done colors 2 if you kind of didn't feel that it was right. So what
Yeah.
was it that made you feel like, this is the time to do it?
Well, I think that's kind of our goal with anything, even in the early days when we were really a lot more technical, and like we still wanted to like not do it just for the sake of doing it. Everything has to have a purpose. And so, we're like that with our albums as well, because we like the grand nature of an album, and making it this big thing rather than just a bunch of random songs on a record. And with colors, it just we were in a place as a band that felt very similar in a weird way, to the way we felt when we were doing Colors 1. We've never been the kind of band that really knows where we belong, or what the next step always is, because we've never followed like a trend or a path that other bands always take. So we were in this place where that was the case, and the fact that we were a band that just turned 20, and we're like, holy shit, we're old. We still, I still feel young, but it's like, oh my god, we've been around for 20 years. And we were at this point where we really wanted to kind of in a weird way just be like, hey, we're still here, we're still as relevant as ever. We think we can write music as well or better than we ever have, even though we're older now, because we've learned a lot, we've worked on a lot of music. We've written, as a group, we've grown into this great machine that works really well together, and writes really well together. And all these things, it made sense. And a marketing standpoint, we're like, oh, Colors 2, it'd be really cool. And then COVID hit, right? And that was like the icing on the cake. It was like, okay, this just makes the most sense. Now's the time we have to do it. It all kind of worked out for us, which is weird because it didn't work out for a lot of people, during the last couple of years. So, but it was the right time and place for us. And I think due to kind of the stress, everybody, and us included, went through, it created music that probably wouldn't have happened without the stress of the last few years.
Do you think also because, as you mentioned, like COVID happened and things like that, because you were literally just stuck there,
Yeah.
the different kind of ideas germinated that maybe, like you might have gone out on tour or something like that, and it wouldn't have happened in that case?
Yeah. I mean, it was all we had, and it was like, we've always been strong believers of like taking what you have for granted because it can end quickly. But that in the past, that's always been because we've seen bands come and go. We've been around long enough to kind of just see the waves and not take things for granted. And like with COVID, I think every musician included, we were all, hit with the fact that shit, this can end at any moment. Like what we do can just go away. And that's speaking, on a touring level, which I think most bands, that's the majority of your income, so yeah, that just kind of like woke us up, and it was just a big like motivator in a way. I mean, there was definitely times and huge moments, I'm sure for everybody in the band, but me as well, just down moments where it was very unmotivating as well.
Well, one of the other things I was going to say is like, obviously Colors is like, you know, regarded as one of the best prog metal albums ever, right? And especially with Btbam fans being Btbam fans, were you
Yeah.
guys nervous that you'd kind of been like, right, okay, we're doing Colors too?
I think at first, yeah, I know I was at first, and at that moment, I was still kind of on the fence. I think, like at the very early stages of writing, in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, if this doesn't work, we can always switch this up and find a different route. Because, like we were saying earlier, I just wanted it to be something where fans were like, oh, they're just doing it to call it Colors too, to get more people to listen to. So, but once we started kind of diving into it, and it just things were really happening, and like a lot, or even early on, a lot of the like little Easter egg things were starting to kind of take place that hinted at Colors One, and we were doing it in a way that I thought was really tasteful and kind of unique and minimal enough that I knew like the diehard BT Bam fans would notice. So yeah, so early on we were like, all right, this is gonna work, and then the nerves kind of went away, and we just got to work. And it's tough for me to like compliment myself or what I do, but I'm really proud of Colors too. I think it's a really solid piece of work, and I think we went above and beyond. But now I'm in that spot where I'm scared shitless. I'm like, what are we gonna do next? So, but that's every record. After every album, I have like, post album depression. I'm like, oh, I don't know, what's the next step? So.
I guess it must be kind of weird because obviously you have all these connotations that you have with the record and everything, and then it's out there, and then fans start interpreting things and all that sort of stuff. So it kind of gives it like a new lease of life almost.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, with lyrics especially, I love seeing interpretation from fans. I mean, there's things people think I'm talking about that's so much more interesting than anything I'm talking about. So it's cool to like, I'll see some things like, man, that's a great idea, and that's crazy to think that's what I meant. But yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's just we're very lucky to have the fan base we do have, and when it came out, we were on the road and things were feeling somewhat back to normal, and just the input from our fan base over this record was just above and beyond. It was moving, man. It really like affected us all. We were really just in awe with how much people enjoyed it. There was not a lot of negativity, which is rare, this day and age on the internet. We felt a great connection through all of this with COVID and the new record, and like these re-releases we've been doing the last few years. It's just it's been kind of like a new level of intimacy with our fans that I don't think we really experienced a whole lot in the past. So that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially you really lucked out like with the tour, because I don't think, was there like 2 dates that Dan couldn't play, and then he recorded the entire set in his hotel room, which is insane.
It was crazy. I mean, it was a really good tour. It was an evening with, so there was a lot of like first things for us. It was like, okay, we're the only band, which there's stress there. It's like, so you have that, you're playing 2.5 hours a night, so you're having to worry about your physical upkeep, and then you have COVID every day. Every show you get through, it's like a small victory, and you just know there was that constant fear of like, is next week going to be here? Is tomorrow's show going to work? Are we going to be healthy? Am I going to bring the shit home to my son and wife? There was a lot of stress, that isn't normally there on tour. But we got through it. And yeah, like you said, the last 4 days or something was the first time we got hit with anything. And we were lucky enough, we had 2 days off in a row, which is pretty much never happens. And Dan got to record his bass in his hotel room. And we, because we played to a click, we just threw his bass in and played with him, which was very weird, because you would hear him look over and he just wouldn't be there. But he played great. He played great both nights.
In the best way though, like he still played. That's the thing. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't just like a backing track.
Yeah, it wasn't like the album or something. Yeah, it was really cool. I mean, we've done something similar in the past. It's a very Btbam thing for us. Like we've always been the kind of band that's like, I mean, every band shit happens, you know, that's just something, you know, touring shit happens. And then you just figure out a way to make it work and not cancel the show, you know, and that's always the goal for us. And, you know, one time Dusty forgot his passport, going to Canada, and we did a similar thing where we took actual live, because we had recorded some live stems from like a few shows before. So we took his live stems and played along with him in, I think, Toronto and one other show. So yeah, it was a similar thing. It was like him actually playing live, but it was just another show, and then us playing live too. Yeah, it's weird. Technology, man. And it's very easy to do. So it's just one of those things. Now I think bands, something we have to kind of deal with now is the possibility of people getting sick on the road and not being able to play shows. So it's like, if you're able to record the sets, record the stems, and have them ready if that's something you can do. And yeah, it was crazy. And luckily Dan's a maniac and just recorded it in his hotel room, which I don't know.
Absolutely insane.
I don't know if I would have done that.
I think you'd have had some like questionable neighbors being like,
yeah,
what's going on in there?
I do that at home with recording. Anyway, so.
So kind of diving into the ideas of the lyrical themes and things like that. Are the themes that go through Colors 2 inherent to the first installment, or are they kind of like completely separate? How does that kind of work?
Well, I wanted to kind of approach the writing similar. You know, each record I try to like write in a certain style, and differently from a previous record, if that makes any sense. And with Colors 1, even though it was a concept record, I wasn't in a place yet where I was like, I want to write a story that fits this, you know. So I kind of basically wrote lyrics just to individual songs and fit it within this musical concept, and that's what I did with Colors 2. And I guess for Colors 2, I kind of the concept was for me that it's Colors 2. Like I kind of created this world that intertwined, you know, some elements from part 1 and made just the idea of these albums together more of a concept than actual songs being a concept within each other. So what I did is I did like I did the first album, and I just kind of wrote a lot of lyrics without much intention, and that was something I haven't done in a very long time, because normally we're working with concept albums and I'm, you know, doing kind of storyboarding and stuff like that. And with this, I literally was just going across the street to the park and like just writing, you know, as much as I could whenever I felt up to it, and with no idea where these lyrics were going. And after a while, I had like a good chunk of material, and then from there, I was just kind of like, you know, because I've been writing so many concept records over the years, I naturally started like piecing things and making connections and throwbacks, and you know, it's just kind of become part of how I write. But yeah, that was the initial idea, was just to kind of speak a little more honestly, you know, from my point of view rather than a character, which is kind of what I did with Colors 1 as well. So yeah, that was and there's some stories kind of thrown in there, you know, so it kind of jumps around. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of represent, you know, my brain at you know, in 2020. You know, I think I want to look back on that record and read it and be like, oh yeah, that's how I remember feeling that way. Or, you know, same with the music. So
when you said, you know, like you kind of go to the park and things like that, did you have any music at that point, or was it just kind of like this is just what's going on in my head and I'm just gonna?
No, we had music. You know, writing happens pretty quick, like real fast, and we're all involved a lot in it. And you know, at that point, I think when I started writing lyrics, there had already been music, but I wasn't sitting down to like, I'm going to write lyrics to this song or that song. Mm-hmm. I was just like, I want to get a lot written and kind of see where things are looking and kind of get a feel for like, okay, this idea kind of fits with how this music makes me feel, and kind of did that later on. But yeah, I always do it. For this record, it was very separate, but for like Coma Ecliptic, for instance, I was literally sitting down and writing lyrics and vocals with like song by song, like, which I normally don't do either. So it just depends on the album and how I decide to write. So
okay, fair enough. So I'm sure that everyone can agree that Colors 2 is a big album.
Yeah, it's long. It's a road trip album. I've always said that. It's a good road trip
album. But what like, when did you know, like, okay, right, the painting is finished, like we don't need to add anything else or anything like that? Because that must be pretty difficult to do.
It's tough. I mean, that's something you can't really answer. Yeah, I mean, we have a tough time with that, obviously, because we have we all work on stuff so much. I mean, it comes down to like, we're still adding sounds right before the mix, and like, what about this here? Or what if we mix this differently? I think once we're in the studio, it becomes more like production ideas rather than writing ideas, because before we get in the studio, we have, for the most part, 100% everything laid out and written exactly how we want. But yeah, I mean, I think any songwriter, there's something just clicks, that something feels finished. I mean, I think that's with writing a song, writing vocals, writing, bass parts, keyboards. I think there's something that just, you feel finished, and I don't know how to explain that really. And I think that's something that is a learning experience. I think the more you work on music, you realize that, like we were talking about earlier, once an album is out, it's just kind of done. So you have to like always be prepared to just be done with it and kind of don't think about it anymore. It's kind of like, I forget who said it. Somebody, I saw some interview with a guy. He talked about it like having children, and it's like the kid going off to college. It's like, well, it's kind of similar. You just kind of, even though you still have to talk to them, it's like being a bad dad after they go off to college. Just get out of it.
It's like, see you later. I'm never
gonna think about you again unless we tour
until the next child comes along.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, I think obviously Jamie King is kind of like an integral part of almost the band now. I think, because he's worked on so many albums with you guys. But what is it that he brings to the band as a producer?
I think the main thing is he totally understands us. We have a certain way of thinking, and I think our music, to a lot of people that aren't familiar with it, it's overwhelming, and it's a lot. And Jamie, because he's been along with us for so long, it's like it is for us. It's just music. It's just our music. It feels very organic. It's just what comes out of us. And he's totally in line with everything we're doing at all times. And he's a great producer, because he's all about, rather than giving bands like his signature sound and how he works with music, he wants the band to be represented as they sound and how they write their music. And we've always kind of loved that idea of him just giving us the freedom to just be us, and he's just there to make sure it sounds good. And he's really good with that. He's a really good musician. He's great with ideas. He's awesome. It's like it doesn't feel like work, because of how prepared we are when going in the studio. When we're in there, it's just like you're just hanging out with Jamie. We normally record, sometimes we're all together, but it's normally just we're all individually recording, and there's not a whole lot of like back and forth. We just kind of do our thing and we're hanging out, and everything's very smooth sailing. And a lot of that's because of how comfortable we are with him and each other. So yeah.
Oh, cool, man. So talking about some of the guest appearances that you had on the album, what made you guys choose the 3 drummers that you did?
Well, yeah, I mean, Blake, that was, obviously Blake's idea. He sent along a demo to that track, which, I love the track from start. And I was like, man, it's a really different song for us, which I loved. And the drum solo idea for me, the idea of a drum solo in a song, I was like, it was like the Colors 2 idea. It's like, it's cool if we can make it work. It's like, just to do it, but the way he arranged it is amazing. I think it's just short enough where you don't get bored of it. And he chose the right drummers. I think we wanted to get guys that were, had some sort of history with us that made sense for, the album. And, we didn't want to get people just for cred, I think those three were pretty much Blake's first choices. And, we instantly were like, yeah, this makes sense. Ken from Candaria, that's a group that, we've all kind of been obsessed with growing up, and Blake, especially with his drumming, is just phenomenal. Portnoy was like, we all grew up on Dream Theater, in our 20s and stuff. And Mike was one of the first people that was like a huge, he loved Colors One. He really helped us push it. He got us on Progressive Nation tour with them. So to have him part of it, like, it just made sense. And then Naveen he's like one of our oldest buds. We've been touring with him since he was pretty much a teenager, and he was in a band called Animosity forever ago. Like, as I've gotten older, I love production, and like, I love the way that Jens mixed the drum solos, because it sounds like they're in a room together. Like, if you listen to it on headphones, it sounds like the kits are like spread across a room, and it's so cool. Yeah, he did such a cool job with that.
When did you guys start working with Jens? Was it on Coma?
Coma, yeah. That was the first one. Yeah, it was one of those things, like, because we were trying some different things here and there, and like with Parallax One, we went with a different producer. It didn't go well, so we went back to Jamie, and we're like, oh, maybe let's see, because Coma was such a different album. We're like, let's work with a different mixer. And Jens just crushed that record. It was like perfect for that. And then, just him and Jamie together was like the combo that really worked for us. And now that we've kind of done the really heavy stuff and the more, proggy Coma stuff with Jens, we know that all the spectrums are covered, and he does it all really well, and the really mellow stuff as well.
I think you're definitely right. Like, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier on, which is kind of, one of the reasons that the fans kind of latched onto this is I feel like it's almost like an anthology of like everything.
Yeah, it kind of feels that way. Yeah. And I don't think that was like that wasn't something we intended to do, really. We weren't like, oh, that's, I think a few of us were like, oh, I'm kind of missing writing heavy stuff. A few of us were like, oh, I want to do this and that. And like, so I think just because of where we all were and how we all wanted to write, once it kind of all started to come together, it felt like, kind of traveling throughout what we've done, which is cool. I think that's one of the cool things about the album is, like, I feel like it would be a good starting point for someone that's never heard the band. Like, if you want to hear it, everything this band's about, it's on this record at some point.
Yeah, man. Especially like the heavy bits, like when that riff comes in on the Futures Behind Us, I think it is. Is it that one?
Yeah, at the end.
Yeah. And I was just like, oh my God, this is like pure 2004 like vibes.
Yeah. The future,
the future. It was awesome, man. So talking about kind of the relationship of Colors 1 and 2 again. So how did you kind of approach the balance between having, the sort of nods from Colors 1, but also kind of keeping enough identity that Colors 2 is kind of like on its own?
They happen pretty naturally. I think a lot of times an idea would start with the nod to Colors 1. Like, oh, that'd be cool if we did something with this from Colors 1, and then then that section would kind of get built into something else. And we only did that like a few times.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, for instance, the Sleep On, Fly On part in, I think, Bad Habits, maybe. Yeah, like that part wasn't like, that just kind of popped in my head as I was writing. And, I think that chord progression there was moments in that track that were based around that middle section of Ants. And there was parts, I think Prehistory as well, that was kind of based around a lot of that Ant stuff. So yeah, it was just, I don't know, we just didn't do it a whole lot because we didn't want to like write based off of Colors One, you know.
Yeah.
So I think because of how minimal we did it, it just came out just here and there because we wanted it, you know, that was one of the main things. We wanted to write a new record. We didn't want to, you know, recreate something we've done. So that was you know, our first goal was to write good songs. The second goal is like to find little things here and there. And like I'm looking at this track listing because I'm bad about it. Like right before the, you know, the segue track and before Human as Hell, that's kind of like a Viridian White Walls. Even Blake put the rhythm of White Walls, you know, on rototoms, I think, or electronic drums or something. But yeah, there was little things that kind of just started to happen that yeah, and the way the album flowed, the piano intro, that was something that was like an afterthought. That track was actually originally in the middle of the album, and
oh really?
Yeah, monochrome was something we were kind of placing, I mean, early on, and then we couldn't find, because we were just going to bust right into double, but we couldn't really, there was no intros that we liked. We were working on a few things, and you know, monochrome just, it felt right, and we're like, oh, it's kind of like Colors, that works out. So yeah, it was just one of those happy accident kind of things.
Oh, cool. Well, my next question was going to be who came up with the White Walls idea? Because, dude, when I first heard that, I was like, "Oh my fucking
for
god!"
the Human as Hell.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that was Blake. Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
That was so cool. Like my
Yeah.
jaw just like hit the floor.
Yeah. Well, it's cool because I think it's weird because that riff, it like doesn't sound like White Walls, but it does at the same time. It's cool. Yeah.
I was going to ask, you know, like you were talking about lyrics being a bit more relatable and things like that. You know, was it kind of, I mean, you know, feel free to not answer this, but like, you know, now that you're a father and everything like that, has that kind of changed your perspective in how you write lyrics and things like that?
Yeah. I mean, it's changed perspective on everything, I think. I think you instantly, there's so many levels to it. I mean, on like the deeper side of thing is, you know, your every decision moving forward and everything you're doing is to better them, you know. So you kind of like live outside of yourself in a way. And that kind of translates, you know, once I had my son, I definitely like wrote more music, worked more, felt the need to kind of like, I guess, leave more once I'm gone. I don't know if it was because of him, but it definitely, it pushed me to kind of do that. And I think, I don't know, I mean, with this record, there's a lot of downer moments, like lyrically. I mean, and I think we all can relate, you know, dealing with that last year, and having a son, and seeing, in a way, I think a lot of times I was writing through my frustration and stress with what his life was becoming. Like, it was very stressful to kind of see someone his age being put in these situations. But at the same time, they're like the perfect example of how to deal with it. Like kids were just adapting, and they were stoked. You know, they were still happy kids. They were still finding ways to play with their friends. They were still, you know, they weren't doing the woe is me thing like us adults do, you know. And I think all those things kind of, you know, just that perspective, and I know I'm going off on a tangent, but yeah, I mean, all those things are kind of influenced lyrics in some way, I'm sure. And I just wanted to kind of, I wanted to kind of treat this record as like a therapy in a way, because there were stresses and feelings that I'd never felt before due to how drastically things were changing, and the fact that I was scared shitless that like, oh, this could end at any moment, like A, life could end, or B, my career could end, or someone in my family could pass away. You know, I think it was the first time in our lifetime that we were exposed to death so much. And, you know, on my son's end, it was weird to like have him see so much death. And, you know, there was all the unrest among, you know, political unrest. I'm not going to get into that shit, but you know, it's like, you know, all these things just as far as humanity not coping well together, and like trying to explain that to him was really hard. It was weird because, you know, I try to always like talk him through that shit and like not treat him like a kid, and not, you know, just be like, yo, everything's cool, you know, because it's not sometimes. So I think just all that stuff, it like built into, you know, what I was writing about. And I don't even know if I answered your question, but I think it was something we all, you know, especially people with kids, it was things we were constantly thinking about and talking about. And I'm lucky enough where I can kind of get those things out and put it in something creative.
Well, I know that a couple of you guys in the band have kids now, so I guess maybe you had like a little support network between each other.
Yeah, Blake's got a little daughter now, which is awesome. Yeah, it's rad seeing him with it. It's such a cool thing. So yeah, it's good to have somebody in the club.
Well, speaking of, you know, some of the things that you'll be leaving behind, I saw that you announced a brand new EP today.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Could you sort of, you know, tell me a little bit about that, you know, from your solo stuff?
Yeah. Well, early, like right when the pandemic hit, I was like, I want to write something to just capture this initial feeling and moment. And that's what I wrote an EP called Feel Better, which was kind of like a motivating. I was in a way trying to like motivate myself, like, hey, everything's fine. But and then this next one is called Feel Nothing, which is kind of like a different feeling we all felt, which is, you know, that nothing is fine and everything's pretty much hopeless. But which I don't necessarily think is true. But yeah, the music, it's a darker record. It gets there's a straight up like death metal song on it. It's weird. Yeah, it's cool. It's you know, I worked with some really cool people on it, a few of the tracks, and yeah, I'm gonna release them both together at some point on vinyl. And yeah, these songs, it's weird because these songs I was pretty much finished with before we even started writing Colors.
Oh, cool.
So I've just been kind of there's like months I'll forget that I even did it. Like there was times on this last tour I was like, oh yeah, I wrote that EP, shit. So but yeah, so now I was just like, I got to get it out before the year's up. I'm like, my birthday is the 30th. I'm just gonna put it out then. And yeah, no pressure. Just that's what's kind of fun about some of the solo stuff. It's just there's no like success pressure or anything. You know, you just kind of release it, let people enjoy it who want to hear it, and yeah, it's fun to do. You know, I've started LP5, which is kind of what I'm slowly working on now, but
okay,
things are moving slow. So
do you find it kind of a bit more I don't know if cathartic is the right word, but you know, like you can kind of just, it doesn't necessarily have to have like a framework that buried in
I can throw up everywhere, and it's yeah. It's cool. Yeah, because I mean there's records that I was like, where I'm sick of guitar and I'm like, I'll just write an electronic record, or there's, you know, yeah, I can just kind of do anything. There's a lot of freedom. I mean, Btbam, trust me, there's a lot of freedom. You know, I think compared to most bands, as a person who writes music, there's insane amount of freedom. I remember when I first started doing it, it gave me a lot of like, I felt pressure from it. But as I got into like the second record or so, I was just like, man, it's therapy, man. It's really cool to do. And a lot of it, in the past, I always wrote most of the material on the road. So it was like a way for me to feel productive during the day. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, going back to Colors, I wanted to ask you, put you on the spot again. What's your favorite Colors 1 moment and your favorite Colors 2 moment?
Moment?
Yeah, I don't know, like your favorite bit. I don't know.
Maybe aren't my favorite. I'm sure later I'll be, oh yeah, that's totally my favorite. But I mean, with Colors 1, For me, the intro was really special for me because it was so vulnerable. It's a hard word for me to say for some reason. So vulnerable for me to just me and a piano at that point. I was not comfortable with, and it was. I remember not being. I didn't really have the confidence to be like, yeah, this is the beginning of the record. It's just me singing with a piano, and so like looking back, I'm like super proud that I signed off on that. You'll just keep waiting. You'll just keep waiting. Colors 2, man. I mean, I love that we say our band name in a track. I've seriously been wanting to do that for like 10 years or more. I think because of my early obsession with Skid Row when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. So I was like, they say the band Skid Row, their name in the song. It's so cool. But I was always just like, it's so cheesy. There's no way to do it. It's literally impossible. And then for some reason that part, I think Dusty wrote that section, and I was like, man, I have a way to make the lyrics make sense. It works with the whole song. I was like, I'm gonna go for it. I remember texting the guys and being like, I'm gonna try this. Let me know if you're not cool with it, but I'll take the blame if people think it's the stupidest thing in the world. So, but yeah, God, there's so much. I mean, my favorite part probably. I really love the like Latin inspired part in Revolution in Limbo. I mean, it's just something that it was one of those weird moments. Everything, the placement of it, the writing of it, it was so smooth. And I remember working on vocals for that part, and it was like my first idea just worked. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. So yeah, I really love that song and that part. The city, they shine.
So have you got any plans to tour at all in the future?
We just announced a tour with Btbam that's going to be full US. And yeah, it's going to be in February and a little bit of March. So yeah, it's not an evening with, but we're doing super long set. It's going to be like 90-minute set for us. Doing a lot of colors too, plus some other stuff. And yeah, and Btbam's a sick band. So yeah, we're stoked to have them.
So as a final question, I wanted to ask, what does Colors 2 mean to you, like personally, if you had to kind of encapsulate what this record represents for you?
I mean, it's kind of generic, but I think albums, they're time capsules, you know, their purpose is to represent you and the band in that moment of time as people, as musicians, as individuals. And I think Colors 2, you know, because it was written right when COVID happened, right when the world shut down, you know, I think it's just something to look back and be like, you know, we took something bad and created, like, I think one of the best things we've ever done during it. So yeah.
Cool. And Colors 3 will be on the way.
I know we've opened the Pandora's box. So yeah, it's like, now everybody's like, oh, Alaska too.
So I just wanted to say thank you ever so much for, you know, appearing on the channel. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to do this, Tommy.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me, man. See you, man.
See you later, dude.